It wasn't weird fiction. I'm not even going to call it, I'm not going to degrade weird fiction by calling it that. It was just, here's a shopping list of all the horrible things that I wish I could do, but I can't say that I want to do because I probably won't get out of prison if I do. So here's another character that I can live through and is doing all the things that I've ever wanted to do with absolutely no motivation. None whatsoever. Absolutely not. And then there's a zombie apocalypse, because why the fuck not?
It could change the world.
Hello friends of the internet, welcome back to Coffee Over Apples. My name is Steph, and I had an idea where I know usually there's like videos where you talk about your favorite books ever. However, I think it's fair to say that there are a lot of non-5-star books, or even books that you don't like, that sometimes live rent-free in your head. So this is a video about all the books, or just some of the books actually, that live rent-free in my mind and that I think back to for either positive or negative reasons, or maybe I changed my rating on after mulling over them for a while. I only have about 5 or 6 books on this list so far, but for one reason or another, these books stuck out to me and they hold a special place in my mind as what to do or not to do if I ever become an author. Books that I think are notable for a reason, and just I don't know that I've necessarily like maybe spoken enough about. Some of these are on my favorites list, some of these are not. So some of this might be a hot take, but anyway, let's talk about the first one on my list, which is probably going to be in the thumbnail of this video. A memory called Empire. You can tell how much I loved it because of how much I tabbed it, and it makes this really satisfying sound. I'm pretty sure I've screamed to the high heavens about how wonderful of a book A Memory Called Empire is, and I think this is doing something for me that brings me back to, I'm currently reading Babel at the time of filming this video, and it's very much in line with that train of thought of what it means to be in the safety net, or what you consider to be a safety net of living within a society that is at the center point of where the, spoils of conquest congregate in order to be used and create this facade of civilization, but at what cost, right? This main character in this book is a ambassador for a species of people, I'm saying people loosely because there are aliens in here, from another planet that was colonized by the Texcalan, which is the main conquerors in this galaxy, in this space. And so this ambassador was groomed for this job from a very young age, and is so in love with language and has come to admire the culture of this empire, that once they arrive at their job, that they're confronted with what it means to take from their own people, and what kind of like other things that the ambassador before them was setting up as a revolutionary action before them, and how they might have to pick up that mantle, but do they want to pick up that mantle? This book sits in my mind, and I think I rated it 5 stars the first time I read it. And if I didn't rate it 5 stars the first time I read it, I definitely upgraded it to a 5-star, because this is such a wonderful piece of writing. And it's a slow pace, not too much action until you get to the end of the book, but slow pace look into what it means to assimilate yourself into society and what it means to sacrifice in order to do so. Very well done. So highly recommended if you've never picked it up. But if you like things that are slow and contemplative, especially if you like anything that's about language, very well done. The next book that I'm going to mention, I don't think I've mentioned enough on my channel, and it's one of those books that I've contemplated giving away in the past, just because like I don't know if I necessarily see myself reading it again, but I can't seem to part with it because it's it was so heavy and relevant at the time of reading it that I think it's one of those books that is going to be eternally relevant in, you know, contemporary American discourse. American Marriage. American Marriage is very heartbreaking. It is a story of dissecting the nuances of Black love and what it means to be in a marriage, but to be at the mercy of the flawed justice system that we have. So essentially the husband in this relationship, and they're happy, it's a happy marriage. I'll start off with that. I think the wife was an artist. I forgot what the husband did. But like, beautiful relationship, highlighting what it means to be a successful Black couple, and just to like find peace and happiness. All of that is subject to upheaval when the husband is wrongfully arrested and persecuted for a crime he did not commit. So he ends up serving jail time, and this puts such a strain on their marriage, and they need to navigate around this. So it's about what he loses in his dignity, in his access to work and access to a peaceful life, and his lack of rights as a human being because of how flawed our system is. And then also what she loses in that as well. And it's like about how individuals who are able to overcome the struggles of our society are constantly placed back into the throes of finding themselves again and rebuilding themselves again, and that cycle just doesn't ever seem to stop. Like, the moment you put yourself out there to try to create any form of success, there's a pothole that is along the way that is specifically designed for you to fall into because you are of this demographic. And it's very sad and like heart-wrenching to see that their happiness is destroyed, and to see them try to rebuild and navigate that. Just, it's so realistic. And what breaks my heart the most is that this happens to such a large scale every day, and has happened and will continue to happen. I just definitely have a box of tissues ready for this one. And if that is something, an aspect of society, of social norms that you may not have thought to delve into, what it means to be part of the institution of marriage, or just like building a new foundation for yourself, building a new family tree, this tackles that really, really, really well. So I highly recommend this book, but I also say be ready to cry. In that same vein, Luster by Leilani is so hauntingly beautiful and raw. It's definitely not weird fiction. Like, it's not strange, but it's strange and alien in the sense that this main character, who is a young Black woman who is from New Jersey, is processing freedom and what that means, while readily acknowledging that the Black body is still at the whim of white body supremacy. And just saying, you know what? I don't think that I'm ever going to be without that power dynamic, that power struggle. So what if I just lean into it? And it's so good. It's like so heartbreaking, but not for the same reason that this is heartbreaking. Heartbreaking in the sense that this young woman I think, knows exactly who she is and what she wants, but really doesn't. And that it takes commodifying her skills, her thoughts, her talents, her body, in order to her to find out what it means to be a liberated person of color. I don't know if I'm making any sense. It is very hard to describe Luster, but Luster was one of those books, I think definitely, that I had originally rated at 4 stars, and because I always think back to it, because it's one of the rare instances where I was like, you know what, I just want to support an author, and I bought myself a digital copy of this book just because I want to have it at the ready. This is a book that I would completely reread. She's an artist, but I don't know that her, for 2 things, necessarily being an artist is a reason why I like it, even though the creative process is very much about inserted in this about her like means of or mode of refining her mode of expression, but that could have been done with anything. I don't think that her being an artist made me enjoy this anymore, but it was important in the sense that she was hiding her creativity because she needed someone from the institution to tell her that it's okay to be yourself. And I think that goes hand in hand with this, about navigating power, about how early in life one defines themselves. I think that it was really important for art to be a part of the conversation in Luster, because there's a larger conversation there to be had about what it means to be a person of color, and more importantly, in this situation, a Black body, and only being validated for your artistic expression when you talk about the Black body, because she very much wants to do her art for her own motivations, but one needs a person that represents the institutions of suppression to be able to give her the permission to do so, but also to recognize that she is only given the space creatively to be validated when she creates work about her plight, and that's exactly what she's running away from. So this was extremely important and relevant, I think, to what's happening right now in the art market and in the world, where this there's always this shift between the abstract and the figurative, right? So every so many years, the art market fluctuates between which one of these 2 components of composition is more profitable. And that's kind of where she is, I think. That's kind of where she is, fluctuating between these 2 things, that she wants to be one and she wants to dabble in the other, but she doesn't want to get locked into one thing. And while I think that the art part of this book is maybe not the most important component, I think it is the most important vehicle towards the end of the book for us really understanding her motivations throughout the beginning. So that's my 2 cents on Luster. Completely fabulous book that I think I might just reread at some point and give a more in-depth review on, because so freaking good. And I could listen to Raven Leilani talk about this book for hours. Another book that lives rent-free in my mind, but I don't have a copy of, is Dangers of Smoking in Bed. The publisher sent this to me before we sent out to the public, and it was so good. It was so good. The Dangers of Smoking in Bed is by an Argentinian author whose name I can't remember right now. I'm very sorry. It is a horror short story collection, and it made me so uncomfortable. Now, I do think that originally I may not have rated this as high as I should have, so whatever the rating was, I'm gonna put it here. But now in retrospect, it's definitely like a 4.5 star. 4.5. The one qualm that I had about this for a long time was that the stories felt like they kind of ended abruptly, but that was the point, because it's strange fiction, it's weird horror, it's surreal, and it's meant to make you uncomfortable. It's that purpose, that intentional leaving you on a cliffhanger, that you're just aching for more. The awkwardness was the point of the story. It was like one of those things where, just don't let them know your next move. Like, we are on a picnic, and then all of a sudden a pack of hyenas might come and like chew someone's limb off. I don't know why, because there is a Hispanic spirit that's been following us since our grandmother cursed us from whatever. I don't know how to describe this book. It was so good. There's one particular story in here that sits with me because, man, that cliffhanger. It was an erotic horror, which I want to read more of. So freaking weird. And like, okay, so it was this person who starts to acknowledge that they enjoy certain kinds of pornography, and they themselves start falling into body horror porn. And then they find someone who's also interested in that and start exploring each other. It was weird, man. It was weird, but I loved it. It was so grotesque. And I've never read anything like that. And if you're a horror reader who enjoys body horror, I think you would like that also. There are a couple other books that I think have been recommended to me, exploring the limits of fascination. That being said, it's not that in itself is titillating to me, like the idea of actually doing what they're doing, but just that someone can be so fascinated with something in an erotic fashion that death becomes sexy. Anything that could make me that uncomfortable is a good time. But there's two different kinds of comfort, right? Because it wasn't about the gore. It wasn't about the body horror itself. It was about the intrigue and the curiosity and the fascination and like, what are the limitations of erotic fiction, or what are the limitations of eroticism? When does something go from being erotic to horrible? And on that same note, you know what? There's another book that's not on this list that I should talk about that unfortunately, very much unfortunately, also lives rent-free in my mind. It is also a horror, but it is really bad. Like, it's not good. So going from the dangers of smoking in bed to talking about a really bad, like if I could give negative stars to a book, it would be this book. And I do not recommend anybody to read it. I don't think I've actually ever formally talked about this book on my channel because I didn't know what to say. This book was sent to me by the author, asked me to review it, and it sounded amazing. It sounded wonderful. It sounded great. However, just because someone is writing from a lived experience does not make them it does not mean that they have the wherewithal to create a compelling story, okay? So this book is a collection, an anthology of short stories written by convicted cannibals. And so the idea behind this, as mentioned in the foreword, is that people who have actually committed cannibalism should be able to write really horrific and interesting stories about cannibalism. 1 + 1 does not equal 2 in this situation, because before each story was something by the author who collected all these stories. They wrote about that particular individual's events that led them to being convicted of cannibalism. Those stories themselves were super interesting, super uncomfortable because they're true stories, but crazy interesting, right? Like I wanted to make some friends, and I'm really bad at making friends, and I was in that school who was really into dissection, so you know what? I sacrificed my family, because like, who does that, right? Those were like super wildly interesting true stories. However, their imagination, being that they were capable of committing these crimes, goes pretty far out there, not in a good way, because it was literally like if you've ever watched South Park and you know the story of Scrody McBoogerballs, that is what this book was.
Kneel before Professor Chaos.
It was disgusting. It was so bad. It was like, It was body horror with nonsense. It wasn't weird fiction. I'm not even going to call it, I'm not going to degrade weird fiction by calling it that. It was just, here's a shopping list of all the horrible things that I wish I could do, but I can't say that I want to do because I probably won't get out of prison if I do. So here's another character that I can live through and is doing all the things that I've ever wanted to do with absolutely no motivation. None whatsoever. Absolutely not. And then there's a zombie apocalypse, because why the fuck not? Why? Like, who does that? Who does that? No. It literally felt like that video where, the episode of South Park, where Butters becomes a best-selling author because he can write something so disgusting that it makes everyone throw up all over South Park. So just grotesque and pointless. Absolutely pointless. Absolutely. No. I don't even know how to describe this book. Maybe I need to make a video of the worst books of all time. That's what this is telling me. Have I done that yet? I don't think I've done that yet. Probably by the end of 2023, I'm going to make a video of the worst books that I've ever read. And please expect this to be on that list. Expect it. Absolutely. 10 of 10. Do not recommend. Anyway, I think those are all the books that I'm going to talk about in this video right now, because I don't know how long that it is. But thank you so much for watching this. And if you agree or disagree with any of these, or if you think there's any books that live in your mind rent-free for positive or for negative, please let me know so I can either add it to my TBR or avoid it like the plague. Anyway, I post videos whenever I feel like it. I'll see you later. Bye.
I'm Leo.
What's the making, Mr. Wonka?